New apps can seem like old news when early adopters drive the conversation. So by the time you notice the trend, you feel late to the party. Let's set things straight. When Google published its landmark papers, OpenAI used this research to create ChatGPT. Anthropic began after concerns at OpenAI about choosing profits over safety. Despite being trained in 2022, Claude debuted a year later following extra safety testing. Claude Code became generally available last May. So we are not late, we're right on time. And coming full circle, Claude models became available on Google Cloud. By default, Claude Code calls Anthropic's API directly, which runs on AWS. And you authenticate with your Claude subscription or an Anthropic API key. But Claude models also run on Google Cloud servers, which is useful for companies with enterprise agreements because you can use your G-Cloud login. So why did they choose the name Anthropic? The answer goes back to safety concerns, as they strive to develop products that benefit humanity. Claude was named after Claude Shannon, one of the most influential people in computing. He laid the foundation for chatbots by showing that language can be modeled as predicting the next symbol from prior context. LLMs are a large-scale implementation of this same approach. Let's look at more names. Starting with version 3, Claude models were given these odd names. This 3-line poem became the blueprint for the haiku form of poetry. If you enter a wrong address on Anthropic's website, it'll display a haiku. These 14 lines of poetry are considered to be the most famous sonnet. Opus is an ancient Latin word that means work. Today, people often conflate opus with magnum opus. An opus numbers each published work, and Beethoven's 125th is his magnum opus. So the naming scheme is a hierarchy, where the least capable and the most capable are bookends to a balanced model in the middle. And the names are conceptual metaphors. Now we'll look at what makes Claude Code more powerful than Claude. Claude Code is an agentic coding tool. The elephant in the room is this word, which has something to do with agent. But agent is one of those overloaded words used in so many different domains, right? Agent actually comes from a Latin word which means to act. Whereas a chatbot generates a single response, an agentic tool acts over multiple steps to achieve a goal. This Google research paper introduced the React loop that Claude Code is built on. When I go down to page 3, we can see why I described the loop in my previous video as think, act, observe. It's because this paper called it thought, action, observation. We're used to the idea that a chatbot uses a language model to apply reasoning to context to produce a response. In a React loop, reasoning still takes place inside a model, and acting takes place in an external environment. Let's see how this works in theory first. A prompt is submitted to the environment and is sent as context to the model. The model thinks about what to do next and generates an appropriate action command, which is sent to the environment where it runs. The output from the action is observed and sent to the model so the loop can cycle again. In human terms, the model is like a brain, and the environment acts like hands and eyes. This is how Claude Code and Claude work together. Claude generates a tool command, and then Claude Code runs it. There are tools to manipulate files, to search file names and contents, to run commands and access the web, and to manipulate Jupyter notebooks. Programs, results, and explanations are generated by a model. The text Claude Code generates are system prompts and messages. Quick aside, models have no memory between calls, so the entire conversation history is sent each time. Claude Code running on my laptop remembers the original user and system prompts and the output from each tool call. But Claude running on a cloud server receives a fresh request each time because it doesn't maintain any history. Let's see the loop in action. I downloaded 146 files from data.gov, which represent what Americans named their babies every year from 1880 through 2025. Each file contains only 3 data elements: first name, gender, and the number of babies given that name. For example, 13,544 newborn girls were given the name Olivia in 2025. So there are not many variables to work with, and I'm not going to let Claude Code use the most powerful model. Here's my prompt. I describe the file naming patterns and the record layout. The first goal is to find the 5 most significant first name trends for each gender, and I further handcuff Claude Code by insisting that it cannot search the web or its training knowledge for help. The second goal is to explain what caused each trend, but it cannot search the web for answers. Here are the loops that were executed. Claude Code sends my prompt to Sonnet, and it decides to confirm how many files match my naming pattern. It generates a command to find files matching a glob pattern, which is just a wildcard search. The glob tool runs on my laptop, and the results are sent back. Next, Sonnet wants to confirm the record layout, so it generates a command to read the first file. The read tool runs, and its results are sent back. Now it can search for patterns. It generates a Python program and embeds it into a write command. The write tool stores the program on my laptop, and confirmation is sent back. It's time to run the program, so Sonnet generates a bash shell command which tells the operating system to execute the file. The bash tool runs, and the analysis results are sent back. Initial findings are analyzed so that a deeper dive can be made. It generates a second program and sends it in a write command. The program is stored and confirmation is made. The second program can be executed now. A shell command is generated and sent so the code can run locally. Sonnet has all the information it needs now, so it writes a report in plain text and sends it so it can be displayed to me. It was Sonnet who decided the goals were met, and it signaled this by sending plain text rather than a tool command. It took Claude Code just 5 minutes to complete the analysis. Then I had it visualize its insights, and I'll share a few examples. To show ranks instead of counts, the y-axis is inverted so that the top rank is at the top. For example, in 1880, Mary was the most popular name for newborn girls, but by 2010, she was out of the top 100. This shows her rank for the first year of each decade. In fact, she was number 1 for 76 years during the first 9 decades. Mary dominated naming due to Christianity's influence, until cultural shifts during the 70s started to weaken religious naming traditions. Linda was extremely trend-driven, going from unpopular to very popular to very unpopular. Zooming into annual rankings, we see her rise into the top 5 for a dozen years, with 6 years at number 1. Her popularity is attributed to a Hollywood star and a hit song during the post-war baby boom. Instead of rankings, this shows counts and makes it easy to see that Mary's reign was interrupted by Linda's rise, and then they both faded away. Liam was so unpopular during the study's first 7 decades that he wasn't even ranked, since names with under 5 births aren't tracked. But then he slowly began to rise to the top over the past 8 decades. Zooming in, we see Liam has been the most popular boy's name for the past 9 years. Liam is an Irish short form of William, and its rise reflects America's fondness for the Irish, plus the popularity of Liam Neeson. Emma went from being very popular to very unpopular, and then back to very popular again. Her ascent was seen as an elegant reaction to the trendy names of the 1980s, and to the popularity of the film Emma. The explosion in name diversity is the last trend I'll show. In 1881, there were less than 1,000 unique male and female names, but a shift toward individuality led to creative spellings and new names. For example, in the 2025 file, there are 5 different spellings for the name Ashley, and new names that rhyme with Ashley, like Dashley, Cashley, and Nashley. I hope you enjoyed hearing the inside scoop about Claude Code.